I hope everybody enjoyed their lunch and the warm weather. It looks like a lot of you are from the Northeast or somewhere really cold. It's actually pretty cold for me outside right now. That's why I'm in this jacket. But I know this is like shorts and t-shirt weather for most of you, right? So I'm actually going to start with a little bit about myself first. So my background is actually first in financial analytics. I worked for a mortgage services company up until 2008. And I'm sure most of you can figure out why I made the transition to healthcare in 2008. But after that, I actually went into healthcare, and I've worked both on the provider and the payer side. I've kind of always had some kind of function from an analytical perspective. I've done operations analytics, financial analytics, product analytics, and then also some shared risk stuff. And the risk was kind of related to my background in finance. So some of the things that we'll be talking about is risk with the different transactions that you're doing with the exchanges and your member profiles. And it's bringing this really mature market, right? Because in the banking industry, they're very mature in how they manage their data and how they're managing risk into some of the healthcare stuff. At Benefitalign, I serve as the practice director for BI and analytics, and I'm currently working on, we've developed exchange analytics already, and we do consulting in this space. So the first thing I want to talk about is, I think this morning you've heard a lot about how this space is growing, the evolution of the space, some of the new products out there, and then also how there's acquisitions in the space. But we haven't talked about, what comes after you get that member, right? Which is really important. So you've gone through the process of getting the member, and you have a bunch of partners that you're working with. And in addition to those partners, you have whatever portal you may be using on your site, and then the associated legacy systems. So what makes analytics complex on and off the exchange is that you're connecting all these disparate systems, right? And then you have to reconcile the data, and you have to make sure that you have one source of truth. So that's actually something extremely challenging. Once you get there, what you end up having is you're turning these transactions and this data into information. But unless you do that front-end work of cleansing the data, the information that you're going to spit out on the other end is not valuable. So exchange reconciliation is the first thing we're going to talk about. And I like to call it dirty data. If you start with the dirty data, basically you're just going to end up with a bunch of garbage on the other side. And so you start with the dirty data, you do a member reconciliation, you're also looking at the financial piece and that data change management. So it's the challenge between connecting all those pieces and then figuring out what's wrong with it. So I'm going to talk about a couple of categories that we've kind of laid out for some of the customers that we worked with and the associated dirty data. So the first example I'm going to give you is actually missing data, right? This is the easiest one. You're expecting to see a first name, a last name, an address, a premium amount, something in that area, and it's blank. So these are easy to fix because you go back to your partner or you back to the exchange and say, hey, XYZ is missing, please provide us that information. The next one is inconsistent data or malformed data. So what happens here is maybe a member goes on an exchange or through your retail portal, and they put their address in, okay? And it's 12345 Southwest 10th Road. Now, when they go through your portal, they actually spell the word road out. And then it goes through your legacy system, and when it spits back out, your legacy system has actually turned road into RD. Because for whatever reason, it turns road into RD. So immediately, if you try to bump up these files, you're gonna have a mismatch, right? And you need to start understanding what is the impact of that mismatch. So the example I gave you is actually not a big deal. But something on the financial side could be a big deal, where you're missing premium information. So we're going to start with a data review. And in this example here, I'm going to kind of talk through this data. So at this point, there's already been one level of cleansing done, right? And in this example, there's 1,500 discrepancies. I know everybody can't see these, so I'm going to point out some of the bigger buckets. The first one is address. Then there's a benefit end date. And then after that, it looks like it's city. So we've gone through the process of cleaning this up, and we're trying to figure out, okay, which are the issues? And the reason we're trying to figure out what the issues are is, you have to be able to categorize where's the real business impact. You don't want your teams going out there and spending a bunch of time fixing a bunch of benefit end dates for members who have already been terminated, for example. And that happens a lot, especially when you're working with partners or the FFM. So I don't know if anybody in the room has experience working with the FFM, but the stuff that they kind of send over is challenging. So what I'm going to actually do is we're going to look at APTC amount. The APTC amount is the after premium tax credit. And it's actually really easy here to see what the issues are, right? So in this example, what we've done is we categorize the data discrepancies, and you need to prioritize it based on business impact. So on the left-hand column here, you'll see there's something that says action needed. And if you were looking at a lot of data, maybe you'd be looking at a couple of records where there's no action needed because maybe that member's gone, or maybe there's no action required on the issuer side, but it's required from your partner side. So these first two columns here say need analysis, and that means that this is where your team is kind of going to deep dive on these issues, right? You're not going to spin your wheels on this next item, which this is a specific FFM example, where it says that the FFM has to update it on their side per their guidelines. So instead of looking at this and saying, I have 40-something records that my team has to go through and review, you've cleaned up your data already, and you've identified the ones that need work. And the other thing that's important about cleaning up your data is that you don't, we've heard a lot about the member experience this morning, so you don't want to hold up all those good transactions, right? All those, you want to make sure that they get pushed through, there's no issues with those members, they've enjoyed a great member experience, and now that you have it categorized and which ones need to be worked on, you can improve the member experience for these folks that need an analysis in case anything gets stuck. So what do you do next? So now you have clean data, and we've kind of gone through this operational piece of it, or where you have all the back house work out of the way, and you have to figure out what's your data telling you. So this is the operations piece, and then next we're going to go into the sales questions. So these are some really basic questions, but they actually can tell you a lot about what you're looking at. So you have the clean data, and you're asking who's your customer, what are they buying, how are they buying it, are they putting in a lot of service changes, are those changes rate impacting? So you want to turn those transactions into information so that you can improve your strategy, right? So basic sales and marketing data like this is going to help you refine your focus and eventually improve your prospecting and improve your bottom line, but it also improves that member experience. So I'm going to give you an example of that. So here's a list of plans. This is a top 10 enrollment. And you'll notice that a lot of the membership is kind of stratified towards the top. And I don't know if you guys can see the words on here, but these bottom 4 plans are HSA plans. And I don't know your experience with HSA plans, but I can tell you that in the South Florida market, they don't sell very well. And this example is actually not in South Florida, and they also do not sell very well. So this customer really needs to take a look at their product portfolio and decide what's wrong with these HSA plans. Is it the way they design the benefits associated with them? Is it that people don't know what an HSA plan can do for them? That they just don't want them? Are they priced wrong? And then once you know that, what are you going to do? So in this example, a customer might say, we actually have one HSA plan that isn't terrible compared to the rest. And they're going to replicate some of those benefits into the other plans. Or they might decide to retire something in their portfolio. When we get to this level, you have to do a similar reconciliation exercise to make sure that everything is clean. I mean, you've kind of gone through that process from an operations standpoint, but you also want to take a look at it from a sales standpoint. There's a couple of other things that are associated with this as well. So this popular plan that we have at the top, and you're doing an assessment of your product portfolio. So do you have buy down options for this plan? Because there's a lot of customers that are buying it, and when they come up for renewal, if they get a 5, 6, 7, 8% increase, you want to provide, you know, that next step so that customer doesn't move on to one of your competitors. And who's buying it and where they're buying it. So I'm actually going to kind of step into that. So what we've done here is we've drilled down into a plan to see where are these folks buying it. So for those of you that don't see the city, the top city there is Virginia Beach, and the one at the bottom is called Winchester. So what's happening here? Is my marketing really bad in Winchester? Or are the folks that live in Winchester not really my demographic? Maybe the plans are priced too high for Winchester. Maybe my marketing is really great, or my brand acknowledgement is really great in Virginia Beach. And then there's opportunities that pop out right away. So I have Norfolk, Chesapeake, Roanoke. Maybe I have to double down on my marketing in those areas so that I can grow them. So at this point, you would review your most popular plans, and then you would develop a product-specific strategy to target these groups that are buying in each one of these areas. Okay. So, and I know I'm moving kind of fast here, I apologize. So when you apply this methodology, right, what is it that you're doing? So you're getting a couple of things. You're getting a comprehensive view of your prospects and members. You're getting a true view of, you know, who's buying your plan through the whole life cycle. Are your products and marketing working? You have a more focused portfolio. And then you have data to support that information. And then finally, by implementing that first process we kind of talked through for data-driven solutions and cleaning the data, you're ensuring that everything that you're working from is basically good data. I mean, if you saw some of the stuff that came through from some of these exchanges, you'd think that maybe in that example where I showed Virginia Beach, you'd have 15,000 members versus, you know, the 6,000 that we showed. So implementing these different methodologies will help you have a comprehensive view of your members, focused portfolio, and data-driven solutions. And if anybody has any questions, we're actually in the back left or right when you're facing me, and we can actually walk you through a demo of a product like this and answer any questions that you have. Thank you.
Questions?
Sure.
Can you talk a little bit about combining the kind of the data cleanup side with the marketing side? Because they kind of seem like two distinct. I mean, I get that it's all data, but it's kind of two distinct parts of the business, right?
They're two distinct, but in order to get to the marketing piece, you have to do the data reconciliation up front. So really step one with us is we start with the data, and we actually start at the most basic level, right? We sit with our different customers, and we go through a data glossary with them and make sure that our definitions are their definitions. Once you get to that clean data, that's the point where you can really start understanding that sales and marketing data, because you're starting from one source of truth. And when you're going through the process of cleansing that data from your portal to an exchange to your legacy system, I mean, that whole connection, so much can get lost from one place to the other that if you don't focus on that in the front before you get to that marketing and sales, that marketing and sales output is not going to be relevant. Any more questions? Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
I guess I have a question.
Sure.
The enrollment data that you showed for marketing purposes, do you have a way of weighing that to eligible kind of population? So it's not just the...
Sure. I mean, what you guys saw here today is really the tip of the iceberg, right? So you can look at what's eligible in your marketplace. You might stratify your membership across a PTC and see is a specific group, maybe 150% or 200% of the federal poverty level buying your plans. And then you take that to the next level when you bring claims data in and you say, okay, so these folks at the 200% level are the ones that are buying all my plans. Are those plans profitable? So definitely you can kind of get into that next step where you can figure out, is the customer I'm targeting the one buying the plans, or is it somebody else that I didn't realize became my target market? Or am I doing a really great job at identifying my customer and then building a plan for them?
Other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.